Now we could write some more code to perhaps create a document and output all of this information. But instead of doing that, I'm going to show you another feature which we'll pick up on in the section that we'll come to later on debugging and error handling. And what we're going to do is to go into break mode. So we'll execute all the lines in our macro and then go into break mode. Break mode is a method of freezing code execution. And one of the things that you can do in the Visual Basic Editor when code execution is frozen is to just hover your mouse over the names of variables to see what values are currently in those variables. So rather than bothering to output them, we can just go into break mode, and then after all the lines have executed, we can then just examine the variables. So in order to ensure that we don't go into break mode before all our variables are populated, we need to put our breakpoint on this line, because the line that you put the breakpoint on doesn't itself execute. So although it says end sub, by putting the breakpoint on that line, the end sub line will not yet have been executed, and hence our program, our macro, will still be running. To put a breakpoint, and even if you're not aware of this, you may well have done it accidentally, you click on this bar next to the appropriate line. That dot then appears, so if you do this accidentally, just click again to get rid of it. Okay, so we're going to enter break mode on that just before ending our macro. Now we can run our macro. And here I've just realized I've made an error, so let's click OK. When I declared my double, I used the wrong prefix. I used the prefix for long instead of the prefix for double. So apologies for that. I'm just going to go back and correct that, dbl, and then it's run again. So nothing happens as far as the interface is concerned, but each of our little variables now has a value inside it. So we can hover over each one. For the document object, it just shows you basically the name of the document to identify it. str title, if we can get over that, has VBA data types. And the reason that you don't see the close quotation marks is that it includes the return at the end of the paragraph. Then we've got number of words is 275, number of characters 952, and then here we've got the single. So the main difference between the single and the double is going to be precision. So if you count the number of numbers after the decimal, you'll see it's 6, whereas with the DBL we'll have 14. So that's the main difference between single and double. Then we've got the number of rows and the number of columns in our table. In the upcoming videos within this section, we'll talk more about working with string variables, integer and long variables, single and double variables, and date variables. However, before finishing this video, I just wanted to make a couple of points regarding the variant data type. So let's come out of break mode, and to do this we click on the reset button just here, and then we can click on this bullet point just to get rid of our breakpoint. The variant data type, as I've said, is really a wrapper data type, and what you're doing by using the variant data type is instructing VBA to make the decisions regarding the type of data that a variable contains. By doing this, you're obviously leaving yourself open to the possibility of errors creeping in and unpredictable results. So it's always best to explicitly declare the correct data type for each variable that you create. On those rare occasions where you do have to use a variant, you declare it in the normal way, dim vnt whatever as variant. However, those occasions are fairly rare. So let's get rid of this. What you should perhaps be aware of at this stage is how you can accidentally end up with a variant data type. The first thing you can do, of course, is not to have option explicit. So if option explicit is missing or deleted, you can then refer to a variable without having previously declared it. So we could say, for example, let int cells equal tbl dot rows brackets 1 dot cells dot count. And this is now perfectly legitimate, and we can prove that by switching on break mode again and just running our code. Then if we hover over int cells, we can see yes, it has got 4. But what's the data type? Basically, because we haven't declared it, the data type is variant. At the moment, there's not much risk of anything going wrong, but obviously the key point is variants are unpredictable. So that's the first way in which a variant can accidentally creep in. Let's again reset and switch off the breakpoint, and let's reinstate option explicit at the top there. And perhaps just lose this line. Another way of accidentally ending up with a variant is where you don't declare the type. So if I take off as string, I haven't broken any rules, because all option explicit insists on is that you declare the variable. It doesn't insist that you declare the type. So dim str title is fine. The fact that it has str as the prefix is irrelevant. That's purely for my benefit. It doesn't have any impact on what VBA does to my variable. So that's the second way of ending up with a variant data type. Let's just undo. Another way is where you're declaring several variables of the same type, but you use a syntax which seems logical but isn't. Now let me explain. So say we had 2 string variables, and to save time we wanted to declare them on the same line. The correct way of doing that is to put comma, second variable, so let's say it's going to be table text, so str table text as string. So that's the correct way of declaring 2 or more variables. You just separate them with commas and you then repeat yourself. The full syntax. But what seems logical, although it's not, would be to do this. So you say to yourself, well actually they're all string variables, why do I need to say as string every time? So you take out all the as strings apart from the very last one. It takes up less space, it's less work, and it compiles with no errors. However, what you actually end up with is one string variable, the one that has as string after its name. All the other variables on that line will be variants because there's no as and there's no data type actually explicitly declared. So that's another way of ending up with the variant data type. Let's just tidy this up. So we'll get rid of this. Okay, so now that we've got an overview of how you work with different data types when you declare variables, in the upcoming videos we'll look in more detail at working with the different data types, working with strings, integers, longs, singles, doubles, dates, etc. So let's just close the Visual Basic Editor and close this document. So Word is now going to ask us whether we want to save this document. We'll click yes we do, save. But it's also now going to ask us, do we want to save our changes to the template which we attached to this document? And of course we do, so we click on save again. As well as declaring variables, it is important to declare the data type of every variable. Any variable which is not declared, or whose data type is not declared, becomes a variant. Variables of the variant data type are slower to process, use more memory, and can lead to erroneous results.